Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi, Maseches ARACHIN Daf Chaf Hey. We begin at the Mishnah, which is around 10-12 lines from the top of the Amud. Says the Heilige Mishnah, Magdish Sodeu. If a fellow donates his field, we're speaking about his family estate, his Sadeh Achuza, a family-owned farm. Bish'as hayovel, during yovel. Now Rashi explains it means bizman shayovel noyeg. At that point in history, when yovel was still active, when Klal Yisrael were living in Eretz Yisrael, etc. But otherwise, Rashi points out avu bizman shein hayovel noyeg. But when yovel was deactivated after the Klal Yisrael left Eretz, then we no longer count yovels. In which case, poida isa b'shavya. Sure, he could be magdish, but the difference will lie in the redemption rate. If he wants to buy it back, full rate, b'shavya, kishar hegdesh, similar to other hegdesh items. So, what's unique about a hegdesh of a sadeh achuza b'shas hayovel, when yovel was still being observed, was not in the ability to be magdish, rather with respect to the redemption rate, the buyback rate that was applied. In a Sadeh Achuza, during Yovel, it's a 50 sela rate per fixed amount. A place called Beis Zera Chomer So'irim, a place where you plant. Zera, you plant. Chomer is a kur, 30 sa'ah, a huge amount of So'irim of barley. So a place in which you can plant that amount of barley, it's 50 sela. So let's call it $50 per square acre, just in our terms, okay? So Magdish Sadeh B'Shas HaYovel Noisim B'Zera Chayim Sa'erim, who pay for the area called the Zera Chayim Sa'erim, 50 shekel kesef, 50 shekel kesef, and of course we're speaking that he's redeeming it when it's still 40 on years to go until next Yovel. Otherwise it gets reduced as you go along. So ultimately you're paying a sela plus a punyan per year remaining until next Yovel. Okay, so if it's now 20 years before the next Yovel, you're buying it back, 20 sela plus 20 punyan, etc., etc. What if we have these interesting bumps and ditches? You have these deep, nicks, 10 tefach deep. So it's a deep hole. Or elevated rocky surfaces, also 10 tefach high. They're distinct, they're separate from the rest of the field. Einon nimdaden imo. They're not counted with the rest of the field. Rashi explains, of course they're hegdish and you have to redeem it, but based on its own actual market rate value, as opposed to the 50 sela fixed rate system that applies to the surrounding flat land. That's only if it's 10 tefach removed, below or above. But pachas mekan, if it's less than 10 tefach deep or high, then it's just batal and mdad and imo, it's counted with the rest. Higdisha, now let's play it out. Higdisha shtayim shalosh shalom lifnei yovel. He was magdish the field a couple of years to yovel. Nice and sell a punyan shana. If he wants to buy it back, we reckon one sela plus a punyan per year. Let's say he says, okay, how much is it? $5? Okay, dvar shana b'shana, I'll give it per year. Okay, make a payment plan. We don't accept this plan. He has to pay it all out at once in a lump sum payment, and he has it back. Now the truth is, anybody can buy back this field, whether the original donor, Reuben who donated the field, has come back and buy it back, or even Shimon or Levi. So everybody can do it, and everybody gets the same rate, except for the owner who has to add a fifth, a chaimish. What difference is there, in fact, between the donor buying it back or a stranger? The owner has to add a fifth of the total amount. So let's say it was $20. That's a quarter, which ends up being 25, which is a fifth of the total amount. So he adds $5. But a regular person who buys back there's no reason to add the chaimish. So Mishnah gave us this $50 rate per acre, a place where you can plant X amount of sa'ir. Tana, kurzera, a place where you can plant a kur, but not a place which harvests, which produces a kur of tvua, which is a much smaller amount, smaller area. right? A plot of land which produces a core of tuah presumably takes less than a core of seeds, otherwise you wouldn't be in business, right? So a core of seeds gets you much more than a core of tuah. So there's 50 selah rate per zera chayma sa'irim is speaking about the place where you plant a core of tuah, of zera. Mapelas yad v'lim mapelas shvarim. Hand, seeded as opposed to animal seeded. They sort of, have the animals run around with a sack of seeds, right? So that requires more because it just lays it out, less carefully, as opposed to a hand seeded, which is more sparse and more careful, which ends up giving you a bigger area for the same amount of seeds. Tani Levi, loy mu'uve, we're not speaking about thick seeds, loy medak or really thin ones, it'll be medium, regular seeds. That is the system that we reckon with. Okay, these deep crevices or these bumps, if they're 10 tefach removed from the surface, so they run their own rate. Rather than the 50 selah per zera chayma sa'irim, it's based on actual market value. Ask the Gemara why. Is it because they're small in size? Let them have their own kedusha, despite their smallness in size, and still abide by the fixed 50 selah rate. Perhaps you'll say, since they're too small, they don't amount to an area of base core. They can't get the regular kedusha, meaning to garner this fixed rate system. Is that true, that there's a minimum size requirement for the 50 selah rate? Vatanya, listen to this price. The pasuk says a fellow was magdish a field, we apply the 50 selah rate. Why the word sadeh? You could have said v'yemei Vatanya sada. What's the point of adding the word sada? Because we have the pasuk which speaks about an acre, right? We apply the $50 rate to the acre. Perhaps the $50 rate only applies to a full acre. What if he was magdish a half acre? Do we prorate it accordingly? Lesach is the half of the core. Half of that. So, just a saw of a tarkav, or a half a saw. Tarkav stands for trei v'kav, 2 and a kav, meaning 3 kav, which is a half a saw. V'chatzi, or half of the tarkav. A teeny plot. Does it earn that 50 selah rate, prorated, of course, based on its size? Yes, despite its smallness in size. The 50 selah rate applies regardless. So the question is back over here. We have this crevice, this bump. Okay, it's small, it's tiny, but let it be covered under the same 50 selah rate, together with the rest of the field. Why are we separating it? We're speaking about unplantable areas. This crevice is full of water. These crevices are not plantable. And the 50 selah rate only applies to a plantable area. Base zera, chaymesair. The economic even prove it to you from the Mishnah, which pairs together the crevices to the rocky mounds. The Tony doing the slime, it compares the crevices to the rock. Shramina. So just like the rock is unplantable, likewise, we're speaking about crevices which are full of water. If that's the issue, pachas mekanami. So why limit this exemption to a 10 tefach deep hole? Even if it's shallower than 10 tefachim, full of water. It's a separate entity. It's not covered by the 50 selah rate. No, says the well, that's bottle. That gets sort of blended into the surrounding environment. Hanu Nagani, the crevices, these holes are lower than, shallower than 10 tefach. It's just a little pail in the ground full of water. Hani Nagani Daramika, they're called like pails in the ground, little water holes. And likewise, in the case of the elevated, rocky bump, shidri, like a spine, like the spines that are of the property, mikra, they're called, meaning, inevitable. It's inevitable that a farm has a couple of, stony areas, couple of holes. That's the bottle to the rest of the field. That's not excluded, that's not dealt with separately, in which case it's covered by the same 50 seller rate as the rest of the field. But if it's significant in size, whether in depth or height, plus it's unplantable, then it doesn't qualify as a sedeh achuza. You want to be magdish it, gesund to hate, but buy it back based on its actual value. Higdish sh'tayim v'shel yishanim tanarabanan. V'nigra merkech af min ha'hekdish. So the pasuk says when you buy it back, the reduction in rate, right, down from 50 selah down to what it really should be redeemed for based on the years that have passed since last Yovel and the remaining years to the next Yovel, is not just limited to how many years it was by the donor prior to donating it, leaving you with just X amount to the Yovel, af min ha'hekdish. It also applies in terms of deducting based on the years that the field was sitting by the hekdesh before it was redeemed. So whatever years passed is deducted from the 50 seller rate. For instance, Shema Chala Hekdesh Shana Shtaim, let's say hekdesh consumed a year or two of produce, it was rented out, it was leased, or even if nobody touched it was sitting by hekdesh fallow. Lo Yachala, hekdesh did not consume, did not have any benefit during those years that it was sitting just, idle. Ela Shoysa Lafana was there. The buyer back, right, can deduct for those missing years. He'll pay a seller plus for the remaining years until Yovel, irrespective of what happened and who used it and who didn't use it. Now, whatever it was assessed at, whatever rate was applied, has to be paid out in full, in lump sum. Let's say the owner says, look, let's do a payment plan. We'll pay per year. As the years go along, we'll pay, per year. We don't accept that offer. Shein Hashem lahem. Tamulim v'chishav le'akoyin ha'kesef has to be kesef, one bundle. Ajehi kesef kol ke'echad has to be one single lump rate, one lump payment. Echad balam echad kolad. This 50 seller rate, which equals a seller plus per year, applies to the donor buying it back or anybody redeeming it. What is the difference? Ma ben balam chaladim. One difference: the added fifth, the added chomish. Shabalam neis chomish. Whereas nobody would have to pay the chaimish, the Bailam does have to pay the chaimish. Okay, so what did we learn? A fellow is redeeming a sadeh achuzah during when Yovel was still active. So if it's the beginning of the 49 year chunk, it's a full 50 selah per base, zera chaimis, a place where you plant a core of barley, manually seeded, medium-sized seeds. That applies to the plantable areas or small bumps and crevices which are bottled, but if they're significant in size, then they run their own separate rate based on actual value. Whatever the rate was given, a set has to be paid in full, in lump sum. The owner has to add a fifth. Says the Mishnah, let's say nobody came to buy it back from Hegdish, Higdisha Vugala. Now, let's say the donor did buy it back. Reuven donated it and came and bought it back before Yovel. That's it. It stays by him. It reverts back to his ownership. Comes Yovel, it's his family plot. Likewise, Golabnoi. If Reuven's son came and redeemed it, it's still close enough to the original donor, and therefore Yovel comes Yovel goes back to the father, back to square one. Gola Achar or Echad Nakrevim. Let's say a stranger or even a cousin came and bought it back. Right? V'gola miyadai. And now, listen to this. The donor went and bought it from the redeemer. So you think perhaps it's back to square one? No. Too late. He's off title. If the donor himself would have bought it back for Yovel, great. It's back to square one. But if he neglected to buy it back, he did not take advantage of that opportunity. Rather, a stranger came and redeemed it. So even if he turned around and bought it from the stranger, comes Yovel, it is distributed to the Kohanim. Yoitza, the Kohanim. Now let's say, interesting case, let's say a Kohen decided to redeem it from the Hekdesh. Not the donor, not a relative, Go'ala Echad Kohanim. And now comes Yovel, he says, look, this is what he's thinking. He says, look, it was slated for distribution to the Kohanim, right? The Mishmar, the group of Kohanim that happened to be, serving at when Yovel enters the, in the beginning of Yovel. Look, I'm also a Kohen. May as well just leave it by me. Difference is he'll get the full thing, as opposed to just a sliver, with the rest of the Kohanim. But that's his thinking. He says, look, and anyways, the address is the Kohanim, it's meant for the Kohanim, leave it by me. Why take it out from me and give it to the other Kohanim? It's meant for Kohanim, I'm a Kohen. So Kohen decided to redeem it from the Hegdish. And now comes Yovel, it's in his possession. You can't say, well, in any case, it's meant for Kohanim, I'll leave it by me. Since in any case, come Yovel, it's meant for the Kohanim, it's already by me, I'm a Kohen. He shall leave it by me. You don't get better than that. It's already there. Ella, the correct way is, he has to let go, and he distributed it evenly and fairly, to all his brethren in the Kohanim, who were, there at the beginning of Yovel. Return to the base. So bottom line, Reuben is Magdash a field. If he buys it back before Yovel, okay, it's back to his family. And he holds on to it for long term. Likewise, if his own son was Paideh, comes Yovel, goes back to the father, back to the family estate. But if a stranger, even a relative, an uncle, a cousin, buys it back from Hegdish, that's it. It's been disconnected from the original donor. He's off title, and now comes Yovel, goes to the Kohen. So the pasuk reads like this: if the donor will fail to buy back his field, rather the gizbar, the treasurer, will sell it to a stranger. Now, what lishachar means anybody but the donor or his son. We'll see in a minute how we know. At that point, it's done. Comes Yovel, it goes to the Kohen. So let's analyze the pasuk word by word, phrase by phrase. Who didn't buy it back? The Bailam, the donor. Okay, so he failed to exercise his buyback option. And who sold the field? Now the Gizbar sold it to a stranger. Comes Yovel, over to the Kohen. La'achar means ben, a stranger, but as opposed to a son. A son and the father, it's one continuum. They're rooted in the same neshama, right? The son learns Torah, the father benefits from it, right? Chacham bni yismach libcha gam ani, says David HaMelech regarding his son Shlomo. Okay, no kara de avua, he takes over for his father. So bottom line, the father redeems, it stays by him. The son redeems, it goes back to the father. La'achar but a stranger, not a son, and we treat it like a perfect stranger. In which case, Yovel comes, it goes to Kohen. You're insisting that stranger means anybody other than a son. So even a brother, let's say, is called a stranger in this context. Maybe a stranger means anybody but a brother. A brother has a connection. He'll take over the family in a yibum situation, right? So maybe he's considered the closest of kin in this matter. Says the Gemara, ish, you can't say it. The pasuk says that it was sold li-ish achar. Ish means hari ach amar. So ish here is covering even a brother. He's considered like a stranger. Homani mikayim achar. What is the pasuk excluding when it says achar, a stranger, as opposed to who? As opposed to a son. So the son is in, the brother is out. Marois. Who says to go this way? L'Rabbi says to allow the son in. Exclude the brother. Why is the son considered closer than the brother? Well, it says the more we find the son has a certain closeness in other halachas as well, closer than the brother. It's logical to include the son and consider him closest to the father. Shekain kam tachas avav liyada, because he'll take over the father regarding yud. Rashi explains the father bought a maidservant, a Jewish maidservant, so there's an option of doing yud, marrying based on the original payment, the money that was paid out to buy the maidservant. You don't have to issue new money for the kedushin. And likewise, the son can tap into that money as well. He can take over his father's process, his father's obligation. Likewise, a person purchased a slave, a Jewish slave, and he passes away. He does not inherit that slave to relatives, to a brother or whatever, but only a son. A son will take over. So we find that a son carries over regarding these halachas. That's why it's logical that regarding matters of Sadeh Achuzah redemption, he's like the original, like the father. Adarabba. If anything, just the opposite. We find elements of closeness by a brother unfound by his son, i.e. Yibum. Who can do Yibum? Honor the potted fellow's wife, only a brother. Mar ben Isa'ach, perhaps I'll include the brother and put him over the son. Shekein kam tachas achav liyibum, because when it comes to Yibum, brother takes over. Well, says the Gemara, hold it. He's only a player if there's no son. That's the whole essence of Yibum. He passed away without kids, but if there's a son, the brother's out of business. So clearly the son overrides the brother, even in the Yibum. You're saying the brother can do Yibum, the son can't. Yeah, but only when there's no son. Apparently the son stands higher than the brother. It's the opposite. Klum yeshibim, is there then a concept of Yibum Ella only when there's no son? Ho yesh ben, if there is a son around, the fellow left behind the son, ain't Yibum, there's no Yibum at all. So that knocks out this factor, this perceived advantage of a brother over a son. Says the Gemara, why do we have to knock it out? Look at the numbers, simply at the numbers. A son has two elements of closeness, Yud and Eved Ivri, and the brother at most. Even if you want to sort of reckon with the Yibum factor, it's only one, it's 2 against 1. But typically, either way, you can calculate an advantage to the son over the brother. The son has 2 advantages, the brother has 1. So why isn't that enough to give him the upper hand? Says the Gemara, because the truth is, of the 2 elements of closeness that we found by his son, one wasn't really conclusive. The truth is that the fact that a son can exercise the father's Yud option, that's a given, as in the pasuk. But the fact that he can pick up the Eved Ivri if the father's passing, that's not so simple. In fact, there's a whole back and forth, all to do with the Gemara Kedushin about this. Who can take over the Eved? Is it the son or the brother? So we sort of have the same dilemma there. Who's considered closeness? And the Gemara looks to sort of investigate who has elements of closeness. Is it the son or the brother? And by the son we have the Yud, by the brother we have the Yibum. On which the Gemara responds by saying, well, Yibum is not an advantage over son. The whole Yibum of the brother is only when there's no son. So that allows us to give the son, to grant him the Eved Ivri rights as well. So it turns out that we only we only discovered and confirmed this element of closeness, the Eved Ivri right, because we knocked out the perceived element of closeness, the Yibum closeness, by the brother. We knocked it out by saying, well, in that matter, brother is not over son. The Yibum is only when there's no son. So that allowed us to build up and confirm that, in fact, there is another element of closeness by the son, which is the Eved Ivri closeness. So it's not a given until we challenge the Yibum element of closeness by the brother. So it's sort of like a circular type of situation. It says the Gemara Shem Eved Ivri, because the actual element of closeness called Eved Ivri that we apply to the son is only based on first negating the element of closeness found by the brother, i.e. the Yibum element. My pircha denafkle, it's only been derived through this pircha. You don't have an element of closeness by a brother over a son, because the Yibum closeness is only when there's no son. Klum yeshivim el mokim shein ben, there's only even when there's no son. So you have to resort to that negation before you can get anywhere. So bottom line is like this. Who's closer, brother or son? So what's a given? What's a fact? A son has the element of closeness called Yiyud, takes over the Eved Ivri of his father. Eved Ivri is still up in the air, unknown. Who takes over the Eved Ivri? We're not sure. Does the brother have closeness because of Yivum? Well, not really, because vis-a-vis his son, that's not really an element of closeness. So we're left with just one element of closeness by his son over a brother. And based on that, we assume that the son will also have the Eved Ivri element of closeness. And likewise, by Sadeh Achuzah, that if the father donated and the son picked it up, it's considered in the family, close enough to the original donor, in which case Kam Yevel goes back to the father's estate. Now what about a daughter? We speak about a son. What about a daughter? Boy Rabba Rabo, Bas, Ma'u Shetam Mitzad Lovia. So Reuven donated a field, and the daughter came along and redeemed it from Hekdesh. Will it now be reinstated by the father, Kaim Yovel? Is she compared to a son or not? On the one hand, we can say sure, because in matters of Yibum, for instance, the presence of a daughter has the same weight as the presence of a son. Right? Father passes away with no kids, there's Yibum. There's a son, there's no Yibum. There's a daughter, there's no Yibum. Since in matters of Yibum Ben, whether it's a son or bas or a daughter, patri, they're both equal in a sense that they exempt their mother from Yibum. Mukma, so now she's considered close enough to the father. She has the same status as a son, and she rebuys the field, it's back to the father. Oidilma, on the other hand, since in matters of inheritance, only a son is Yerush a father. A daughter is not. Bas Mokam Ben, if a daughter is around with a son, we treat her like a stranger regarding Yerusha. So she's not as close to her father as a son, so perhaps she doesn't have this ability to reinstate it by the father upon buying back from Hekdesh. Tashmai comes at Raya. How do we define Acher, stranger, in matters of Sadeh Achuzah? Kol Shu Ach Mokim Ben. You know what's an Acher? The Mokim Ben. Whoever is considered a stranger vis-a-vis a son, in matters of Yerusha, likewise, is a stranger in matters of Sadeh Achuzah, and that includes a daughter, who's considered like a stranger in matters of Yerusha when there's a son around. V'hanabi, and a daughter as well, b'malkim ben, if there's a son around. She's not Yerush. Ki achodami, treated like a stranger. Likewise, in matters of Sadeh Achuzah, she is like a stranger. Boy Rab Zera, what about a woman who donates a field? Isha, mi ma'amid lo, Sada, who will reinstate her field? Who could come along, buy it back, and have it revert to her ownership? Who's the closest in kin, so to speak? Is it the husband, Ba'al Mukim lo? Shall we say the husband? Because he's Yerish's wife upon her passing, Shekin Yersha. Or maybe the son, Ben Mukim lo. He will do this. Because he has an element of advantage. Because in contrast to a father, a husband, who's Yerush a wife upon her passing, he only gets muchsak, what was in her possession, actually in her possession, not roy, something which was intended, slated, expected, anticipated in the future. As opposed to a son, let's say there's no father, the son is Yerush the mother. He's Yerush even things that come along later, money that was repaid, etc. So in effect he has an advantage, which denotes a closeness, more than the father. So who's considered closest regarding buying back a Sadeh Achuzah? Take it, we'll leave it on result. So we know that a fellow can redeem a Sadeh Achuzah, and he pays, as per the remaining years. One Salah plus per the remaining year. What about if it's less than 2 years to Yovel? It goes up to the full 50 Salah rate. So that incremental, prorated system does not apply if it's less than 2 years to Yovel. What about this Kohanim distribution system? Would it apply in a Hekdesh that was done so close to Yovel? Shall we say why not? Or shall we say since the prorated redemption process was suspended in this case, perhaps the entire process, including Kohanim distribution, is also suspended? If he was Magdish, I feel less than 2 years to go to Yovel. What about the halacha of going to the Kohanim? Amalei says, "My daita." Why are you suggesting otherwise? Perhaps these two elements are sort of linked. Which refers to the prorated system of redemption, is linked with V'hoya hasada b'tzeisa b'yovel. That come Yovel, nobody redeemed to go to the Kohanim, so they're linked. When one applies, so does the other. Devas giroin, in only a field which is subject to the giroin system, i.e., it was donated well before the Yovel. Then the second element of Kohanim distribution applies as well. Yes, the lav bas giroin lay, but otherwise not. Adrab, just the opposite. Illegal asada. Pasuk says nobody came to redeem it. V'hoya asada b'tzeisa b'yovel. Come Yovel goes to the Kohanim. B'hai nami bas gulin. This also qualified. The fact is, you could redeem it. It's going to cost you a lot. If you your Magdash is so close to Yovel, then you can redeem it. It costs you an arm or a leg. You have to pay full rate. But you have a buyback option. And if it has buyback option, so perhaps the Kohen distribution system applies as well. Okay, that was the shayla. If one is Magdash very close to Yovel, in which case there is only the full rate buyout system, does the second element of Kohen distribution apply as well or not? So he says, yeah. The fact is you can buy it back. And in the absence of a buyback, goes to Kohen. Now for the last halacha in the Mishnah, let's say a Kohen bought it back, and he wants to hold on to it. He says, what's the point of taking it from me, giving it to other Kohen? I'm a Kohen as well. I'm a Kohen miyuchas, right? Go lechem l'Kohen b'chul. Tana rabbanon, met l'Kohen te'achuzasai. So, Kam Yovel, it goes to the Kohen. Now why does the pasuk add the word achuza? Matam aleima. It goes to the Kohen. What does achuzasai mean? Matam aleima. M'nayin l'sada. It's to address this case. How do we know? In a case where a field, sheyoytzei, l'Koyanim b'Yovel. It's meant to go to the Koyanim, but a Kohen bought it out beforehand. How do we know? You can't claim, since in any case it's slated for the Koyanim, leave it by me. Leave it by me. And he comes up with some original logic to justify his claim. If I can acquire others' fields, meaning let's say Reuven donated, Shimon redeemed it from Hegdish, comes Yovel, the Kohanim get it. So I'm getting something from Shimon. I'm expropriating Shimon's property. I'm taking Bishal Atzmi Lakoshkin. Wouldn't it seem logical that I could just hold on to what I already have? Just leave it by me. Tamalei machuzasai. L'koyin te'achuzasai means achuza shaloi. Only if it's really his family plot, then it belongs to him. Veinza shaloi, but this doesn't belong to him. It's not his family plot. He got it from the Hegdish. Okay, so how do you proceed? You distribute it evenly. He gives it up. It's divided. Lechem comes to his brother, the Kohanim. Now let's say nobody bought it back. Says the Mishnah. Comes Yovel, nobody touched it. Do we have to wait until somebody actually redeems it, or does it just go to the Kohanim? Says Rabbi Yehuda, it goes to the Kohanim, but they have to pay for it in this case. You can't just give it to them free of charge. Yeah, if somebody would have bought it back from Hegdish, comes Yovel, it goes to the Kohanim free of charge, but in the absence of a buyback, although it's meant for the Kohanim, which is a great thing, they get a field, but they have to pay for it. Shimon, no. If they get it, it's free of charge. They enter the field, they don't have to pay for it. Guess what? It sits there, waiting a buyer. The Kohanim don't take possession, they don't pay, it's not theirs. We put up a big sign outside, abandoned field, awaiting a buyer, until the next Yovel comes around. It just sits and sits. You can't take it out of Hegdish until it was paid for, until there was some conversion, some change of hands. Comes the next Yovel, nobody had touched it. We change the sign again. Double abandoned. Until the third Yovel. La'olam, that's the rule. La'olam in a Kohanim chassan l'seichel. The Kohanim are not going to take possession. And shigal and ach until somebody comes and redeems it for something. Just take it away. Pay it off. Take it away. And now comes Yovel, goes to the Kohanim. So we have three shittas in terms of how and when the Kohanim get this field. So Reuven donated a field. He failed to buy it back. Yovel came around. Reb Shimon says, Kohanim free of charge. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kohanim with payment. Rabbi Yehuda says, leave it alone until somebody comes. My time with Rabbi Yehuda, why does Rabbi Yehuda charge the Kohanim? Gomar Kodesh Kodesh. She has a Gzerah Shava connecting our case where it says Kodesh Hashem to another case where a fellow donated a house where it says Kodesh Hashem as well. Kodesh Magdash Bayis. We compare it to the fellow who donated a piece of property, a house. Just like over there. It has to be paid for. Pasuk says, you have to evaluate it. There's no concept of giving it to the Kohanim. This whole system only applies to a field. So a house has to be bought back from Hegdish. Avkan B'dam, likewise, by the Sadeh Chuzah, although it runs its own track, it's given to the Kohanim, but that's only following payment, some sort of payment. Reb Shimon says no, they get it free of charge. Why? Gomar Kodesh gives out Zeres. Yeah, I have a Gzerah Shava with Kodesh, but connecting us to the karbanis of Shavuos, where it says Kodesh Yul Hashem LaKohen, and there's no payment. They get the karbanis free of charge. Just like over there, it's free of charge. Likewise over here. Rabbi Yehuda, Nami, Nelev, Mekivsa says, why doesn't Rabbi Yehuda link it up to the karbanis free of charge? Don Kachar Bedek Habayis. He says it's a more fair. It's a fairer matchup between Sadeh Achuzah, which is Bedek Habayis, Kedusha, to the home, which is monetarily Kaddish. Mikachar Bedek Habayis. That's a more fairer matchup. Vein Don Kachar Bedek Habayis, as opposed to linking up Kachar Bedek Habayis, a field which is monetarily Kaddish, meant for the maintenance fund. Mikachar Mizbeach, and comparing it and learning it from the Karbonits, which are Mizbeach Karbonit, a different system. So why doesn't Reb Shimon compare the field to the home? He says, look, you can't compare it. My matchup is a better matchup. I prefer comparing and learning the halacha about Sadeh Achuzah from the Karbonits, which is a gift to the Kayanim. I'm going to learn Sadeh Achuzah, which is a gift to the Kayanim, from the Karbonits, which likewise is gift to the Kayanim. And just like over there, it's for free here as well. As opposed to the bias, which is not a gift to the Kayanim. We can't learn Sadeh Achuzah, which is meant for a gift to the Kayanim, from the home, which is given to the treasury, which is not meant for a gift to the Kayanim, so you can't compare. And that's why I learn it from the Karbanos, which are distributed free of charge. Okay? All the best to you, and Hatzlacha.